Good morning, Tech fam. It's Wednesday, July 3rd, and you're listening to FLYTECH Daily, the podcast that makes your morning smarter in 10 minutes or less. I'm Nick.
And I'm Michelle. Today's top stories are loaded with shakeups, showdowns, and shiny new tech. So let's break it down.
For our first topic, Microsoft just laid off another 9,100 employees, and Xbox took the biggest hit.
For our second topic, Honor just dropped the world's thinnest foldable phone with some asterisks.
For our third topic, Paramount settles with Trump for $16 million to clear the gateway for a major merger.
For our fourth topic, Apple is delaying new features in Europe due to strict privacy laws.
And for our fifth and final topic, the Nothing Phone 3 brings flagship specs, dot matrix nostalgia, and spin the bottle games.
Alright, Nick, let's fly.
For our first topic, Microsoft has announced its latest round of layoffs, 9,100 job cuts, hitting Xbox, Candy Crush maker King, and studios across Europe.
This isn't a one-time event. Microsoft's been making cuts all year. Just last month, another 6,000 roles were eliminated. This time, it's specifically painful for gaming division. Developers, artists, and even long-gestating projects like Everwild are reportedly canceled.
Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, said it's about streamlining the strategic growth, cutting layers of management and focusing on what's working. But let's be real, these layoffs come right after Microsoft's $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard.
Microsoft now owns some of the biggest games in the world, from Call of Duty to Candy Crush. But integrating all those studios is messy, expensive, and yes, sometimes bloody. So Nick, what's the takeaway for our Call of Duty fanatics?
Microsoft gaming empire is growing, but not everybody's coming along for the ride.
For our second topic, Honor has unveiled the Magic V5, claiming it's the thinnest foldable phone ever, just 8.8 millimeters when closed.
That's incredibly slim, thinner than its rival, the Apple Find N5. That's a mouthful, but there's a catch. The measurement only holds for the white version, and it doesn't include the camera bumps, so it sticks out quite a little bit more than that.
Honor's in a foldable phone arms race. Brands are slicing off millimeters and grams to win the world's thinnest crown. But what really matters here is the Magic V5's performance. A Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 5,800 mAh battery, and wireless charging.
Wow, that's higher specs than my MacBook. But if you ever seen a foldable phone, imagine a smartphone that opens like a book, giving you a tablet-like screen inside. The tech's been around for years, but now it's finally getting slim, powerful, and dare we say, practical. So Michelle, what's the takeaway for all our beautiful listeners?
Foldables are getting thinner, but hype doesn't always fold into reality.
For our third topic, Paramount is cutting $16 million check to settle a lawsuit from Donald Trump over a 60 Minutes interview.
Trump accused CBS, aka Paramount, of misleading editing a segment featuring Kamala Harris during the election. Legal experts said the suit lacked merit, but Paramount settled not to pay Trump personally, but to fund his future presidential library.
Why settle now? Well, Paramount is trying to merge with Skydance Media, a multi-billion-dollar deal that needs approval from the very administration Trump now influences.
They're also agreeing to release transcripts of feature 60-minute interviews with presidential candidates. Transparency by settlement.
So Michelle, what's the takeaway for everybody cutting a $16 million check?
Paramount's merger dreams cost $16 million and a whole lot of political calculus. For our fourth topic, Apple is hitting pause on some iOS 26 features in the EU, including locating privacy tools because of new regulation.
Apple says the EU New Digital Markets Act could create security risk if it's forced to open up parts of iOS to other platforms and apps. So it's holding back features like visited places, which encrypts and stores your location history.
The European Commission wants Apple to open 9 key parts of iOS to increase competition. Apple says that breaks their privacy model. It's another round in the EU versus big tech saga.
All right, so here comes a little context. Europe fined Apple 500 million euros earlier this year for anti-steering, blocking app developers from linking to better deals outside of the App Store. So Michelle, what's the takeaway for my people at Apple Park?
Apple's privacy pitch just met its toughest audience, European regulators.
And for our fifth and final topic, the Nothing Phone 3 is here and is company's big first swing at flagship phone market. For our fifth and final topic, the Nothing Phone 3 is here and is company's first big swing at the flagship phone market.
Nothing is the brand founded by Carl Pei, co-founder of OnePlus. Their phone stands out for the bold design, semi-transparent backs, and glowing LED lights called the Glyph interface.
Phone 3 adds a new dot matrix glyph display. You can now play spinning the bottle and rock, paper, scissors on the back of your phone. It's fun, but the company insists it's not a gimmick.
Under the hood, it's solid. Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 chip, up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, OLED screen, fast charging, and IP68 water resistance. Starts at $799 and officially launching in the US.
This is Nothing's first real shot at competing with iPhones and Galaxies. They're betting on playfulness and personality. So Michelle, what's the takeaway for Carl Pei?
Nothing's Phone 3 is bold, weird, and ready to battle the big dogs. All right, Nick, so hit us with the takeaway for our tech fam.
For our first topic, Microsoft Xbox empire expands, but it's game over for thousands of employees.
For our second topic, Honor's Magic V5 is thin, but watch out for the camera bump.
For a third topic, Paramount's lawsuit settlement may be a political strategy dressed as a legal resolution.
For our fourth topic, Apple's privacy stance is clashing with Europe's openness agenda.
And for our fifth and final topic, the Nothing Phone 3 proves that serious specs and playful design can coexist.
And that's a wrap for today's FLYTECH Daily. 5 stories, 10 minutes, and 1 better informed brain.
If this episode helped you impress your coworkers or beat your cousin in tech trivia, give us that sweet 5-star rating.
And if you're feeling generous, tell your friend who still thinks the iPhone 6 is still good enough.
We'll catch you tomorrow. Until next time, peace.